Hey crew, welcome back to the workshop. Artisan Pirate here, and in today's fun project video and in today's special video, we are going to be making a beautiful layered 4-leaf clover over on the TOOCAA laser engraver for St. Patrick's Day. Today is St. Patrick's Day, my friends, for 2026, so I hope you all have a safe time if you partake in the St. Patrick's Day festivities. But the 4-leaf clover is one of the traditional outlooks and traditional symbols of St. Patrick's Day, with the clovers, the luck of the Irish, and things like that. I picked up this file off of the Etsy website. It was very inexpensive, I think only $2 or $3 as US currency. And if you guys remember, when we upgraded the TOOCAA 20-watt laser to a 40-watt laser, TOOCAA kindly sent me some 3mm craft plywood, and I want to use it to make this project and bring it to life in today's video. I hope you all enjoyed yesterday's Celtic welcome sign that we cut out completely from start to finish over on the Bricon scroll saw, but I wanted to continue the fun and festive side of St. Patrick's Day by making something over on the laser engraver. I've also got a new feature with the laser engraver. I now have a proper mount. I don't know if it shows up here, but for the GoPro to hang on in the enclosure, so hopefully that gives you guys a better vantage point once we get to the inside portion when the laser is actually laser cutting. And keep in mind, there's going to be all laser cut pieces on this project and no actual laser engraving, so just keep that in mind. This material here is very thin, as I said. 3mm craft plywood. You can see it bends and flexes in my hand, and I've had to learn how to dial back the laser because I was so familiar and versed with using the laser in a 20-watt manner, but now that we've went up to a 40-watt, it's simply flying through some materials, as I showed you when we upgraded the laser, you know, for thicker and thicker. So when you go down to thinner and thinner material, you have to, of course, dial back the power. So I've been doing some tests with that, so hopefully I've got it dialed in. If not, I've got a few pieces extra of this to play around with in case we have to do a piece over. But it's going to take 4 layers. Of course, with layered designs, you could use any individual layer, but I'm going to make the project as it was intended. So without further ado, let's get our safety UV goggles on, get the air filtration unit on, and we'll move the camera closer to the TOOCAA 40-watt laser and get started. And as always, before we get started, I'll show you guys a preview with the file loaded on the Lightburn software. And I've got the clovers sized to the sample material that TOOCAA kindly sent me, and I'll have to go in 4 individual passes. But we will step over to the TOOCAA laser, and I'll open it up and turn the GoPro on and hit record on it. Close the laser up. Double check by framing out our material and hitting start. Now we're going to have to use 4 different passes to cut everything out, but I'll only show you 2 of the individual passes for video purposes. But here is my traditional view when viewing the TOOCAA laser while it is doing its jobs. It has this orange translucent case on it, and it's billed as the world's safest laser engraver. But I'm happy to report that I now have a permanent camera mount on the inside of the laser engraver, and this is that view here. I hope you guys like it, and I hope it gives you all a good vantage point of the laser while it's doing its jobs. Everything on this project is laser cutting. There's no laser engraving, and the new 40-watt head that TOOCAA sent me simply flies through this 3mm craft plywood that they sent me. Of course, each time the laser is done with a layer, I'll let it sit for around 5 minutes to make sure that all of the smoke and the fumes have been extracted out of the workshop before opening the enclosure to remove the pieces. But the first piece here is already done, and after letting that smoke get extracted, I opened up the enclosure, I paused the GoPro, removed all of the waste material here, and loaded our second piece of 3mm wood in and held it in place with some magnets. I turned the GoPro back on and I framed everything out once again, and then now it's just a rinse and repeat of what we have already done. From this next view, you guys will see the permanent camera mount I have attached in the TOOCAA enclosure. I just thought it would be good to have an actual mount as opposed to just sitting the GoPro on the inside on a block of wood or something. And I love how with the case on this laser you can see it from virtually any angle. But we will once again go back to the inside here with the view that the GoPro is providing us with. And you can see how the enclosure is capturing all the smoke and the fumes and piping them out of the back of the workshop, keeping the air quality as clean as possible. And once again, this file is from the Etsy website. If you guys like what you're seeing, I would highly encourage you to subscribe to the channel and also follow me across all the social media feeds under the Artisan Pirate name. I'd really appreciate the support. And I want to once again thank TOOCAA for providing me with this sample material and also with the upgraded 40-watt laser head. Thank you guys so much. But once it gets done here, I'll once again leave it sitting for around 5 minutes to make sure all of the smoke and fumes have been extracted. And then I'll come back and remove the pieces and the waste wood. And there was so much waste wood here that I got out the shop vac to get all of the pieces pulled up. It's good to have a shop vac or a vacuum nearby to help with the cleanup. And then I loaded the next piece in and we were ready to go with the third layer. But as I said, it's just a rinse and repeat process here. But after all 4 of the layers were done, I had them spread out on the Rikon table saw. And one thing I love about layered designs is you could totally just use one individual layer for its own standalone design. But now it's time to begin adding splashes of color, and I'll use the acrylic paint pens that I picked up off of Amazon, and I painted what I thought needed to be painted. And I will not show you guys all of the painting process. I feel like that would be boring. But you can use any combination of colors you want to. The top layer here gets totally painted, but then the rest of the layers, only the internal details need to be painted because the rest of the area will be covered by that top layer. But I got everything painted and I left it sitting around for around 3 or 4 minutes to completely dry. And then it was time to begin the glue up process with medium grade CA glue and activator from Klingspor Woodworking Shop. And it's just a very straightforward assembly process, layering the pieces together. And it all came together beautifully. And after it had completely dried and cured, it was time for a finish with a few coats of Rust-Oleum clear gloss. And when it dried, the 4-leaf clover for St. Patrick's Day was complete. And here we have the completed Luck of the Irish 4-leaf clover layered with 4 pieces of material, laser cut completely from start to finish over on the TOOCAA 40-watt diode laser engraver. And I think it finished up beautifully with some very nice Luck of the Irish green details in it. Really cool, really creative project. And let me tell you, my friends, with the 40-watt upgrade on that TOOCAA laser, I was able to go at a quicker speed. It only took me around an hour to laser cut through everything. I know on some materials I was having to do multiple passes and everything, but the TOOCAA 40-watt laser done a phenomenal job going through the 3mm craft plywood in the project we did here today. And I want to once again thank TOOCAA for supporting me and going above and beyond by supplying me with that 40-watt laser head. But really, really neat here. Really love all the intricate details here. Please be aware that with the thin nature of the 3mm craft plywood that TOOCAA sent me, it is a very fragile and delicate project. It does get a lot more sturdy once you get it all assembled, as it is here. But again, each individual layer, due to the thinness of the material, Here's our leftover pieces, the 4 layers. It is of course very fragile and could potentially break, so just be careful with it. And keep in mind, I had to go in 4 individual passes. As I always say with laser engraver videos or laser cut videos, if you have a larger laser bed, you could of course probably make this project in 1 individual pass. You could make it out of exotic or hardwoods if you want to. Just keep in mind the time that it might take you, and also depending on the watt of your laser engraver in your garage or workshop, it might take you a little longer or even less time to make it. But it only took around an hour to make everything here. I pretty much stayed in the workshop. Now of course you can step away to get a sip of water, get a sip of coffee, you know, go use the restroom quickly. But of course, with the nature of a laser engraver, especially now that it's a 40-watt laser head, you need to of course keep an eye on it the whole time it is running out in your garage or workshop. And I did have on the safety UV goggles anytime I walked over to check on it, try to remind myself to keep them on. And I also had the air filtration unit running in the top of the workshop. Now, as I always say with laser cut patterns and with layered designs, even with layered scroll saw patterns, you could of course use any individual piece you want to for its own standalone project. I feel like that very back layer with all of the intricate details, see here on the back, that back layer there with all of the intricate details, you could of course enlarge that for a piece of wall art and maybe cut it out of a piece of poster board if you had a larger laser bed. Of course, I went with the size here. These are 8 inches wide pieces of 3mm craft plywood. I did have some 12-inch square pieces, and I could have made this a lot bigger, and it'll probably come up a lot better over here on the YouTube platform for the video purposes, but I wanted to use the material that TOOCAA kindly sent me with that 40-watt laser head. But after everything was laser cut and we cleaned it up, sometimes, and I always say, I like to have a small tool with a needle-like point on it in case any of the smaller intricate pieces get trapped. You can gently poke them out without having a fear of breaking anything. I use this all the time over at the scroll saw, and this is by Moody Tools USA. A subscriber to the channel gave it to me, but I use it with the scroll saw a lot to clean up pilot holes whenever sawdust gets caked into them, but it's also good for poking out those small pieces over on laser projects. But again, 4 individual layered pieces of the 3mm craft plywood, and I painted each layer with these acrylic craft pens that we used for the first time on a project in yesterday's video for our St. Patrick's Day scroll saw project video, the Celtic welcome sign, and they done phenomenal on it, and they also done phenomenal on this by adding colors to it. Now you could of course, if you wanted to, go in with acrylic craft paints and water and paint everything. You could spray paint everything. You could of course, as I said already, make it out of exotic or hardwoods if you wanted to where those natural shades and textures could shine through. And of course, if you use a lighter material like this, you could totally just stain everything for a more natural earth tone appearance. I teased with the idea of doing a few of the clovers, you know, yellow, because you know, and when you get a dry spell during the summer, the clovers will turn a little yellow. I toyed with that idea, but I went with just the 4 shades here, and that intricate layer, the other side of it, is gold, because you know the tradition of St. Patrick's Day, the leprechaun is of course after his pot of gold, and you can see it down there between the layers. Just a really cool project that I picked up off of the Etsy website, and again, it was only around $3 or $4 as US currency, and you could use it in so many different ways. You could export it out of the Lightburn software, which you guys know I use for the lasers that I use out here in the workshop primarily. You could export it as a JPEG and print it out as a scroll saw pattern if you wanted to do that, or you could even do it as a vector and make it for a CNC to where you could go in and carve it out. So the skies are the limits with each design you pick up for the laser engraver. Just think outside of the box, crew. That's what I always encourage people to do. And one thing, this does not have a backer board. I also toyed with doing an offset to put a backer board on here and maybe painting it yellow or a different shade of green. But I do like that it doesn't have a backer board, so wherever you display it, the background is going to shine through. So, you know, it'd look really cool holding it up to the sunlight or against a field of clovers, you know, so to speak, for St. Patrick's Day. But I also feel like you could use scrapbook paper like we have here. We picked up at the Hollow store we went to, and you could put different backgrounds behind it. So there you see the tropical beach one. I don't have a green background, or I'd show that to you. Here we have a sunset or sunrise at the beach with all of the palm trees. So that's another idea. And you could, of course, laser cut this with a very fast speed and a very low setting. So just be aware of that. And speaking of power and speed, again, I was able to go quicker. I traditionally use a speed of 300 to cut everything out with. That was with the 20-watt laser, but now we have the 40-watt upgraded head. I used a speed of around 400 to 425. I didn't know how fast I could go. I'll have to play around with that more and more. And I only used a power of 65% in one individual pass with air assist on. And as I always try to tell anyone, the TOOCAA is billed as the world's safest laser engraver. It has that phenomenal enclosure on it, and you've seen in the close-up view, and hopefully you like the new view where I've got a proper mount now for the GoPro to set on, as opposed to just sitting it in there to where it can get a good vantage point. You've seen in those views how the laser was capturing all of those fumes and piping it all out of the back of the workshop, keeping the air quality in the workshop itself as clean as possible. And of course, as I already said, the air filtration unit was running. But today is St. Patrick's Day, crew, and I just wanted to make a special video to bring to life for you guys to hopefully enjoy. And the four-leaf clover, the lucky four-leaf clover that is an iconic fixture and symbol of the St. Patrick's Day holiday, along with the leprechauns, the pot of gold, taverns, and all of that. And I hope wherever you are in the big wide world we live in, that all my family, friends, followers, and subscribers have a happy and safe St. Patrick's Day 2026. That's going to about wrap it up for this one. If you're new to the channel, hopefully you'll click that subscribe button and also follow me across all my social media feeds under the Artisan Pirate name. As always, links to contact me as well as all my social media feeds will always be linked down in the description box below these videos. That's about all for this one, crew. And remember, if I can make it or do it, so can you guys. Have a happy and safe St. Patrick's Day 2026, and I'll see you guys real soon.